All right, so I am Amy Rasdell from Billable with Baby, and I know some of you, but I don't know all of you. I'm a working mom of two kids, ages almost 5 and almost 15. They both have birthdays coming up. I traded my corporate job for consulting 15 years ago, and I love it. Now I live a very blended life. People talk about boundaries, but I kind of mix and match everything. I do a little bit of stuff for the kids, then I jump in and do a little bit of work. I'm famous for doing conference calls from the park and Costco and all of those things. I've learned to be quick on the mute button, but I have to admit I've been busted a time or two. I had one time, this was actually, I was doing it before I had kids, and I didn't think I was going to have to talk. It was a big group conference call where there were like 15 people, and all of a sudden somebody goes, Amy, what do you think? And I'm like, okay, and I'm on the treadmill. So I'm like, every breathing to get that going. It was kind of funny. So that was an interesting experience. So I work and play every day rather than setting specific times. I like to mess around all over the place. But the thing is, when you work for yourself, you can do whatever you want. That's what I love about it. Sorry, I was just muting Malini. Hi there. So now I help working moms take control of their career so they have the flexibility to raise their children the way they wish. I'm quick on the mute button, as I mentioned, and I can even tell you a foolproof way to do a conference call from Disneyland. So ask me at the end of the webinar if you want me to actually tell that story. I'm a really practical person, so my approach is very practical. I like to call it clearing roadblocks to revenue. We always focus on generating revenue first, and then we talk about all of the other steps. And I like to take things in little steps, right? You're already a working mom, you have kids, so you can't handle these huge, overwhelming things. So I'm now going to share my presentation. Get the slideshow going. I should have had this up before instead of working out in the gym, but there we go. And my camera's gonna freak out, which it does from time to time. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and dive in. I've talked about kind of the basics. I'm intending this to be very practical. There is a chat if you've used Zoom before, and then we will also do questions and answers at the end if you have specific things that you want to know. I also want to mention that I'm always available. You can get me via email or Facebook groups, all that kind of stuff. So if you have a question, you're welcome to hit me with it anytime. So we're going to start with the top 5 things to know. So here they are, and then we're going to dive into each one in more detail. The biggest thing is that it's surprisingly easy to get started. In fact, it's shockingly easy to get started. You need a computer, a phone, brain power, and business experience. And I'm pretty sure that all of you have those. Even though there might be certain days when you don't feel as confident in those, especially during those phases of newborn and pregnancy. But it really is easy to get started. And here's why, and I apologize for my camera. I don't know why it does that. Here's why it's so easy. You have never been available before as a consultant. I'm going to see if I can shut my browser and have that help. Shut all the extra stuff. Pardon me for 1 minute. So here's why it's so easy. You've never been available as a consultant before. Once you start letting all the people know who know that you do great work, they know how smart you are, that you're available on a consulting basis, they're going to snap you up. So oddly enough, it's easier to land a project when you're first getting started than it is later on down the road. And it's just an interesting phenomenon that goes along with it. The other thing that I want to say is if the thought of starting a business energizes you, if it makes you feel like a superhero, then I say go for it. But if you're like a lot of us and it seems overwhelming for the reasons that I said before, you're a working mother, you have kids, you don't need to look at it like starting a business. You can take it step by step. And what I'm going to tell you to do first is just land a project and get a check in the bank. step by step. The other thing I always like to mention is, let's see if I can do something about that camera. The other thing I like to mention, I'm going to stop my video for a minute and then I'll start it back up. The other thing I want to mention is when I was in your shoes and I had always been a W-2 employee, I didn't know, you always hear about what it's like to be self-employed. So I didn't know if there was a big mountain or just a little hill of things that needed to be done. And I'm here to tell you that there's not a big mountain of stuff that you need to do. All you need to do is land a project and get a check in the bank. And all that administrative stuff, like incorporating and bookkeeping and all of those things, you can do all of those things later down the road. So all you need to focus on right now is to land a project and get a check in the bank. Give me 1 second. I'm going to see if I can get my video going again. I'm going to stop my share for just 1 second, see if I can bring it back. My apologies for the technical difficulties. Okay, now I have everybody back. I'm going to try and share again. All right, we'll see if that calmed it down now that it had a little break. So the important thing is again, that it's surprisingly easy to get started. You can start looking for projects now and be billable as soon as next week. After that, things get a little bit harder. A solid consulting business is built through hard work and a willingness to take risk. So here's the thing. No check goes into my bank account unless I go out and bring in the business. And here's how it looks. I get out the binoculars, I climb the mountain, I scout the herd, I shoot it, kill it, cook it, and throw away the bones. It's all completely up to me. And I always laugh a little bit at that story because I happen to be a vegetarian, so I don't eat animals. I guess I'm going out and shooting carrots and potatoes. But you get the idea. There is no grocery store. You can't go just get the work on your own. You have to go out and get it. So if you're a partner in a big consulting firm, what's your top job? And for consultants, that's the job track. So if you work for McKinsey or Booz Allen or one of those, your career track is wanting to be partner. When you're a partner, the number one job is bringing in business. So that's the hardest thing, but I love doing it. The other important thing to know is that people buy your experience. Now is not the time to go out and do something completely different. So I had a client a couple years ago, and she was fantastic, super talented. She had a baby that was about 6 months old, and she had been a CPA, so her background was public accounting. Then she had jumped off and worked for a couple of, on the industry side, worked for a couple of companies, but all of her career had been public accounting, and finance. And she said, I'm sick of doing accounting. I don't want anyone to know that I'm even a CPA. I want to do strategic planning in the brewing industry. And I said, who's going to hire you? Just because you like beer doesn't make you qualified to do strategic planning in the brewing industry. And it's kind of interesting. I live in San Diego, and the brewing industry is a real thing. About 2 years ago, we had a local brewery that was started by some college kids that sold for $1 billion. $1 billion. So it is a real industry, especially in San Diego, but she had no background to do strategic planning in the brewing industry. People hire me because I've been doing what I do for so many years, and that's why they're going to hire you. This was my biggest surprise. So now that I have Billable with Baby, and I didn't go into a lot about my background, but Billable with Baby has a brother company called Billable at the Beach, which I started first. And both the businesses are helping people start their own successful consulting businesses. And I get 2 big buckets of clients. I get those who are just getting started, just fledgling starting their consulting businesses. And I get another bucket of people who are 2 or 3 years in, and have worked off what I now know is the pent-up demand. I didn't expect this. So my first few years as a consultant, I didn't work that hard to bring in the business. I was so relieved to not be working a corporate job anymore that I took up water skiing and I went back to taking a bunch of dance classes. I went to my mom's house and we spent 2 weeks cleaning out her whole house. And it actually was a wonderful experience because sadly, some people do that after their parents have passed away. And we dug through all those boxes and had all the memories and cleaned everything out, which was a huge help to her. And we had a great time doing it. But I'll tell you, in my corporate years when I only had 2 weeks vacation, I wasn't going to spend 2 weeks helping my mom clean out all of her closets and her attic and her garage. So these are some of the things that you can do, but I neglected networking, marketing, and business development. So my biggest advice is start marketing, build that part of your program right from the beginning, and never stop. And here's an interesting thing. Doing the billable work, surprisingly enough, is the easy part. So when I actually get to sit down at my desk and do my work, that's almost like the vacation part. The hard part for me is the building the business, the networking, marketing, and business development to keep it going. But it's worth it. So what I like to tell people is never let a day go by without doing something for networking, marketing, and business development. At this point, I spend a lot, but you just need to spend an hour a day. And I had a real light bulb moment after I got those 2 or 3 years in, and I thought, oh man, this is the life. I started water skiing. I was doing all this great stuff. I was still making really good money. Things started to slow down, right? My pipeline started to dry up. And what it was is that all the people that already knew me had exhausted their long list of projects. So that exact reason that makes it so easy to get started, all the people that know you are going to say, oh my gosh, Kathleen, you're available. Aaron, you're available. Let's have you do something. That's what happened to me. I had done all of those projects now, and now I had to break out and expand my network. But I didn't realize that at first. And I was meeting with a woman and I said, I'm really scared. I love this. I love the lifestyle, but I'm not getting as much work as I need now. And she said, what are you doing for networking, marketing, business development? I said, well, I guess water skiing and cleaning up my mom's garage don't count. And she said, look, Amy, just spend an hour a day. Can you spend an hour a day? I said, sure. I work out an hour a day and I don't always love that, but I do it anyhow, right? So I can spend an hour a day, and that's where I like to start people. Remember, I'm a very practical person, so my approach is clearing roadblocks to revenue. I want to break things down into small enough bits so that you can always get them done. So if something's overwhelming, and honestly, in my core consulting practice that I've done all these years, what I really am is a high-level project manager. So I go in and I specialize with my clients. They have these big, overwhelming projects that aren't getting done. And one of my big strategies is just breaking it down into small enough pieces so that the people who need to do the work can do it. So if it's a director or a VP level person, I can give them fairly high level chunks. If it's someone who's working on the loading dock, I post a schedule that gives them every hour what are they supposed to do. So I have a real talent for that. That's one of my superpowers. And so that's what I also do with my Billable with Baby Moms. If they're stuck on something, it's usually because you're overwhelmed, right? It's a trick that I learned from a fellow mom when my daughter, who's now almost 15, was about 6 months old. And it was the laundry mountain. We all know that, right? And she said, look, here's what I do. Instead of tackling the mountain of laundry on Sunday, I do one load each day. I get the kids up, I quick round up the laundry, I throw it in the washer, feed everybody breakfast, throw it in the dryer. And by the time I get home from taking them to school, I only fold one load, not this huge mountain that's overwhelming, and I put it away. And I thought that was so brilliant. I'm really good at helping people do that on work type projects. It had never occurred to me to do that on the laundry, but it's a great tip. So just starting with an hour a day, but never letting a day go by without doing something. Of course, that's overstating. Erin was just on a retreat. You shouldn't be doing that while you're on your retreat, although I could argue. And that for you, right? It was your business. You weren't an attendee. So you got the best of both worlds there. And then I also want to say, I know all of these mistakes, all of these things that I'm telling you, because I've made every single one. And now I want to share them with you so that you can get a quicker start and not make all of these same mistakes. So now for the fun part. I mentioned that I've been doing this for 15 years and I love it. I absolutely love it. I don't love every bit. Sometimes when I'm dragging myself out to another networking meeting, I may not love that, but I work when I want, where I want, and how I want. I love that. The other thing I really want to be clear about is just because you have this flexibility doesn't mean you make less money. I actually make more money than I could in a corporate job. I was at the VP level, and there definitely are some executives of companies that we see making many millions of dollars. I wasn't at that kind of a VP level, but I'm making just as much money as I could on a corporate track, even less. I do have some moms who quit their corporate jobs and they actually make the same amount of money working part-time. I had a mom who was in the program last fall. She left her corporate job. She's a social media manager. And within 6 months, she had doubled her corporate pay. Now, I'm not taking the credit for that. She's amazing. And not everyone who has those results, she's kind of my superstar poster child, but I'm just saying that I had that experience and it's possible that you can also have that. The other thing that I love, I'm really a doer. I'm an action taker. That's what I'm good at. I don't love doing the high level strategy stuff. I really like getting stuff done. I'm really happy when I'm crossing things off my list. So now that I'm a consultant, I actually have more impact on my clients. When they bring me in as a consultant, as a superhero, the executives listen to what I'm telling them. And I love that. It was funny, I was telling my dad when I first started doing it, I said, Dad, I have to be careful what I tell them because now they listen to what I say. I can go on every school field trip if I want to. If that thought horrifies you, then don't go on the school field trips. My thing that I ended up not loving was attending all those kids' birthday parties when your kids are really little and you have to go with them. But I really enjoyed going on the school field trips. And not just that, is in public school, I was a little worried about what the supervision might be, so I could be there. And I want to tell you that it's still a juggle, but I really do have the best of both worlds, and I love it. There are occasions, I have to confess, when I get to the end of the day and I sit down and I think, oh, I'm not a stay-at-home mom, and then I work a late night. But having the flexibility to be able to be where I want to be has been really wonderful. And now for the things that I don't love quite so much. I've hammered over and over again about the idea that no check goes into my bank account unless I go in and bring in the business. There also aren't benefits when you're self-employed unless you buy them for yourself. So if you happen to be in a position where your partner has benefits, then that's fantastic if you have a partner. For me, I am married. I have the 2 kids and a husband, and I've had all of them for quite some time now. Not planning to get rid of them. But my husband also is self-employed, and I've always been the primary wage earner. So for us, any medical insurance and all that kind of stuff, we have to pay for it herself. So we actually have Erin, who's a doctor, on the line with us today, and I'm sure that she would reinforce this. Please don't ever go without health insurance. My husband 10 years ago, out of the blue to us, because we had no idea what was going on inside his body, had $500,000 worth of open heart surgery. So he's good now, but medical bills are the number one cause of bankruptcy in this country. We sometimes think that people who go bankrupt are kind of other people and maybe they didn't manage their money, but medical bills can quickly overwhelm your entire financial world. So please don't ever go without health insurance. There are a lot of options for self-employed people. There also is no IT department. So I've just learned tricks like when I buy a new laptop, I keep the old one so I can revert back to it if I need to. I back up automatically to the cloud twice a day. And I have an IT support guy that can help. So all of these support people that you might have been used to in your corporate job, now you can have them on your own. You just have to kind of build your little resource network of people that can be helpful. And you can definitely do that. And these days with the whole online world, it's easier than ever. When I first got started 15 years ago, for example, if my computer broke down, now almost everything can be fixed remotely, but that wasn't the case when I first got started. The other thing about being, sometimes people call it a solopreneur, mompreneur, all of these things apply to us. There's no one to blame but yourself if something goes wrong. So I go into my clients as a consultant. You really are frequently a superhero, which I love. We're already superheroes. We're well versed in that because we're moms, and moms by definition are already superheroes. But there's no one to blame for yourself if something goes wrong. So I often do go into a client, and I often go in because something is really messed up. And I'm going to have to take a little bit of heat for it, even though I didn't cause it. And my projects usually go pretty well, but there are some bumps along the road, and I'm going to have to take a little bit of heat for that along the way. But for me, it's worth it. So the most important thing, and one of the hardest things, is the networking, marketing, business development, and I don't always love that. So just to kind of recap, one of the biggest things that I want to tell you guys is that it's really easy to get started. It's shockingly easy to get started. And there's so much that you can do in the beginning, and then you can start putting all of those other pieces into place as you move along. It does take hard work and risk. So I'm 15 years in, and I've put in special software, and I've incorporated, and I have a tax strategist, and I have an insurance broker, and I have all of that stuff, and I've figured out what's the best way to buy computers and cars and all of those things. But you don't have to worry about any of that stuff right now. If the idea of starting a business is overwhelming, just land a project and put a check in the bank. The other important thing is that now's not the time to do something completely different. It is, I promise you, it's going to be completely different. You're going to be working when you want, where you want, and how you want. So I do almost all of my work remotely. I do quite a bit of networking on the ground, and I often meet with clients if they're local, which probably 80% of my core consulting clients are local. I usually meet with them a few times, and it's interesting. A lot of times they'll say, well, let's do a weekly in-person status meeting. So that's fine. An hour a week, I can manage that. But what happens is 8 weeks into the project, I'll be organizing the agenda, and I'll reach out to everybody and I'll say, here's what I think we should talk about during the meeting. Would you have anything to add? And a lot of times they'll say, you know what? I think we're all up to speed. I don't think you need to come in. So often I'm able to manage a project 100% remotely. I also, because it works for me and my family, I tend to work half my work hours during the day and half my work hours at night. But the thing is, you can do whatever works for your family. For some people, they hate that idea, and their spouses wouldn't necessarily be in favor of it. But for us, that works really well. I want you to also remember the pent-up demand phenomenon. So even though it's easy at the beginning, you need to start doing those things along the way. And then the one note is always be selling. So sometimes people ask me, what can I learn from you that I couldn't figure out on my own? And I'm here to tell you absolutely nothing. You can't learn anything from me that you couldn't figure out on your own. But it's taken me 15 years of hard lessons. So how long do you want to wait? I can help you avoid so many of the things. And it's so easy for me because I've felt the pain of those mistakes. And I get so much enjoyment out of helping my moms skip those mistakes, jumpstart it, avoid the pitfalls, avoid the dry spells, and really build a strong business. So I love helping other people. And it sounds a little weird, doesn't it? live my life. Of course, I don't want to help you live my life, but I want to help you have the freedom and flexibility to live your life on your terms. And here in Billable with Baby, I'm focusing on raising children, but in the brother company, Billable at the Beach, it's whatever that means to you, and that can be the same for you. So I only do my Land a Project Now group program a couple times a year, and now's the time. It gives you clear action steps, baby step by step, baby step, to secure your first client and put a check in the bank. It includes an online course on the Teachable platform. We're going to have weekly live calls, a pop-up Facebook group for the people who are in the program so we can ask all the questions all the time, and loads of personal support. The first time I did it was actually as a group program. I've had a one-on-one program in Billable at the Beach for about 10 years. And I was really amazed at the power of the group and how much I got out of it. And I know, Erin, you just had that experience because Erin just did a retreat where they went out, I think they went river rafting or something like that. And even as the leader of the group, I got so much out of it, and I learned so much from the moms. So the power of the group was really fantastic. So I would love to have you guys join me. It's a great way to jump in and get started in a group where you feel supported. So here's a link where you can purchase the program to join us. The cart is going to close this Friday, September 21st, and in true webinar fashion, if you purchase today by midnight tonight, I'm going to throw in a bundle of joy, which is 3 45-minute one-on-one sessions with me. I sell that typically for $247, but this will give you the program plus some extra help to focus after the You don't need to use it during the program because you have as much support as you need during the program, but after the program to kind of do those little bits and pieces of personal stuff, or if you're stuck. And also for all of the people that registered for the webinar. So for you guys and anyone else who wasn't able to attend, I know I register for webinars. A lot of people are at work at their corporate job right now, and then I watch the replay. There will be a replay if you want to watch again. Right now, it's $147 for the program. For the next 48 hours, the people who attended the webinar, if you use the code ACTION, you can get it for $97. And I'll send out an email with all of this stuff along the way. So I'm now going to jump into Q&A. I am going to stop sharing my screen and bring everybody back and unmute you and see if anybody has any questions. You can jump in person, or you can put them on the chat, whatever works for you. Anybody?
I don't really have any questions, but I just want to say I hopped on this webinar, Amy, because we got to know each other through a Facebook group, and so I've been following a few, and I'm still really new. Like you mentioned,
yes.
I'm a physician, but I'm finding like the traditional practice setting is not working. My kids are 6, 4, and 2, and then also my husband farms here in Southern Indiana, and so I just find that you're just such a huge inspiration to me. As I feel like I'm going from a corporate job. Healthcare is very slow to change, and so what I'm working on is I am a life coach for physicians, particularly physician moms and burnout, but I'm also exploring the consultant role of doing telehealth. And so I'm really excited about this, and your pointers were so great, and I just really appreciate you. Thank you so much for what you're doing.
Thanks, Erin. Thank you so much. Anybody else have any questions? If not, I will let you all get back to your busy lives. My apologies for the camera freaking out, and I just want to say thank you so much.